hang on, I forgot to unmute myself on stream. Welcome everybody to Critically Casual, where the only person who heard me cough right now was Dev. Say hi, Dev.
Hi. Hello, filmmakers and moviegoers alike.
Yes, welcome to Critically Casual. Man, I think that's the first time we've ever said that correctly.
Said what?
Filmmakers and moviegoers alike.
I've said that correctly before.
Sure. I honestly don't remember. I just know when you were the host of the show, you didn't say it right, so I'm just gonna remember that. When it was you and Soy. Long time ago.
One time!
Yep.
I've hosted it since then before.
And I don't remember that occasion, so.
Ant-Man.
Alright. Well, do you have anything you want to say before we get into this week's discussion?
Let's just get into it.
Alright. Let's just saddle on up and get on into the reviews here. Because this week, I've called this week's show, They're Alive! And what I mean by that is, these are shows, or movies, made out of TV shows, a couple years later, that has brought all of our favorite stuff back into the fold. So, that being said, the movies that we are watching are Deadwood, that we are reviewing, are Deadwood the movie, and El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. So,
Hello, Chasing.
Yeah, hi, Chasing. Welcome to the show. And without further ado, let's just get right on into the wild, wild west that was Deadwood the movie.
Surprisingly easy to tell the entire plot of the show. In a way that, like, you understand where all these characters come from and...
Beforehand? And their relationships?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just jumping into it. Like, me having, like, seen only a few episodes here and there of Deadwood, I was able to pick up, like, essentially what happened from when I last watched.
Yeah.
Like, through minor flashbacks, which weren't, like, abrupt, but they were really good for people who maybe haven't watched the show in a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Or even watched the entirety of the show, to understand what's going on, and also to just kind of be absorbed into the world really well. Like, I didn't feel like I needed to watch the entire show. Mind you, it makes me want to watch the entire show, which is also probably good for their bottom dollar, so...
Absolutely. They can always get reigniting interest in some of their old shows. You never know how many people are just going to come back and watch the shows again. Like,
yeah.
Because what I did when I watched this movie, because I watched this movie today, and the reason I watched this movie today is because I also just finished binge watching all of the Deadwood television show, and I watched the last episode of the last season around 1 o'clock today, and I was like, alright, time to watch Deadwood. And after going through all of that, like all of that binging streak, I have to say that I had to say I liked the movie. It was definitely a good movie. I definitely really enjoyed the TV show, but that's not the review, what this review is on today. One thing that I do have to say, though, is that I was kind of a little bit disappointed, only because I literally, after binge watching this for the last, like, 40 hours straight, because I tried to watch all of it, and I didn't realize how long these episodes were. But, after watching so much of it, it was kind of weird because the characters backtracked a little bit in their character progression from the end of the last episode of the season. Which, of course, that's probably nothing you could really see as somebody who hasn't seen the whole show. Makes sense. One thing that I thought was a little upsetting was actually how much exposition they had in there. Because if you had watched the whole show like I did, they literally... A lot of it was some told back flashbacks, and but it was all and some of it was just characters talking to themselves about what had happened and why they're in this place for whatever reason it was. And
well, the thing is, not everyone who even watched the show is going to go back and rewatch all of the show.
No, I know exactly. Like what I'm saying here is just like I'm not gonna deduct a lot. I'm not gonna like say that. Because I'm bringing this up, I'm like, just because there's exposition doesn't mean it's knocking off like 4 or 5 points or anything. But like, Ultimately,
That's what he's saying, ladies and gentlemen.
exactly what I'm saying. Because I'm a black and white reviewist. It's either good or it's trash. But all in all, I have to say, I think my biggest complaint was kind of the feeling of the whole movie, essentially. Like, because when I watched the TV show, I got a lot of this like mood of tense and like tense air, and there's a bunch of subtext, and there was a lot of things like just people staring at each other that conveyed a lot more emotions than the words that were coming out of their mouths, which is something that these actors did very well. But then when it came to the movie, a lot of that subtext kind of wasn't there, and the it kind of, to me, didn't have like a very resounding resolution. Like, I can only imagine, to those who had waited 10 years to watch this movie, they were probably just happy to see this movie come out, and they're like, that was a great ending. But with the ending, it felt like it could have been more. And
Well, I was surprised how short it was.
it was like an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 40 minutes.
Hour 48 is what it said. Which, like a normal episode was at least an hour?
Yeah,
right?
it's usually a little under 50 minutes long.
Which you would think, like, yeah, I'd like the extra hours there, but like I expected 2 hours going into it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just based off of that, because if you're gonna do a movie, you go a little bit longer than that. Because like that's what they did with the, not to compare to what we're watching after, we're talking about after this, but Breaking Bad's El Camino was at least 2 hours.
It was 2 hours and 2 minutes with credits.
Yeah. While this one was an hour and 50. So it's almost 2 hours, but like 10 more minutes in the world could have added some more context.
Yeah, like if we were to get into spoilers for this movie, which we normally we don't on our first movie, so that's probably not going to happen today. But like I would explain more about why I felt that the ending wasn't like into exact detail on why I didn't like how it all ended. But all I can genuinely say at the moment is like there's all this build up. At least to me, there is this build up of what was supposed to happen. And it feels like that because they had to follow what happened in history, because this is real life history that they're reenacting in a dramatic fashion. Like, because they followed what happened in the history books, what you wanted to happen didn't actually happen. So, at least to me, what I wanted to happen didn't happen. So,
what a big shootout at the end.
Kind of.
Well, that's the other thing. Like, a weird way of putting it is that we did glorify the West to a point that, like, it's unrecognizable when someone does it more true to how it was, like Deadwood, because Deadwood is more true to how the West was. Yeah. Like just from a couple episodes I've seen, and then this, like it was a lot more in the mud. There wasn't a lot of gunslinging. Like there was gunslinging, but it wasn't like you solved every problem with a gunsling moment.
No, there was a lot of moments where literally people, like, there's a lot of moments in this TV show. It was a lot of just awkward stare downs and like threats on their lives, but there was barely ever like a gunfight.
Yeah, there's a lot of fronting in reality, but I will say it's still, I feel like just kind of going into pretty blind. I still feel like it. I'll say this: it made me look forward to playing Red Dead on PC and RP, because if people can make the RPs similar to more how like Deadwood is, and less just gunslinging moments, which I bet you the RP servers when those go live probably a month after because 5M said that it'll be like about a month after Red Dead 2 goes live is when they want to try to get the 5M servers up. If people can make it more similar to how Deadwood is, that's going to be awesome. Just because, like, it isn't just gunfights and everything, but when the gunfights do happen, holy shit, they're pretty fucking intense. Because it's not like a real shootout. It's more you slowly pick each other off, and like who's standing and gets to kind of call what happens at the end.
Yeah, but especially like the most intense gunfight that actually happened in the whole series was in this movie, and it was during the like confrontation with Hearst.
Yeah.
Like after watching everything, I would have to say that the most like, oh damn moment was that kind of shootout there. Other than like there's a moment in the TV show with a horse, which gets kind of weird and pretty dramatic at times. So, but this was like the best shootout by far, and there's definitely a lot of good moments in this film, but like at the same time, it doesn't have like the like
feel.
Yeah, it doesn't have the tone to me, and it doesn't quite. I'm not saying it doesn't have like the happy-go-lucky ending, because never is Deadwood supposed to have that kind of ending. Just everything.
No.
But like it doesn't quite have like the resolution you want, I guess. It's not that you want the happy ending, but it's not quite a
I will say it is very human of the story to not have a full-fledged resolution too.
Yeah, which it's taken a more realistic look on the Western, so.
Yeah. It's give and take.
Mm-hmm.
Which is good in my opinion. You should be able to have that kind of ebb and flow from what, you think it should be, but having it subverted a little bit isn't a bad thing. I guess for me, it maybe does me better being naive and blind going into it. That I don't have those predispositions that you have towards the show, or towards the movie from the show. And I think it does what it also wants to do is make you want to watch the show. So, I mean,
like the way I think about it, I only have my opinion is because I literally went through from the end of the last episode and then into the movie. So I jumped 10 years in like 1 minute, and like I had all these impressions of the show beforehand. Of course, there's a literal 10-year difference between the making of in this, so of course there's going to be a slight change in how things feel, and of course I'm going to have all of these like different emotions towards it because I literally just went on the ride of that show. So like I would say ultimately it was definitely a good movie, and I would 100% recommend it to somebody who wants to watch the Deadwood TV show, because it doesn't really spoil anything from the TV show. It just flashbacks to key moments that kind of explain the characters and their decisions, and then you get to like just go on along with the story, and that's about it. So I would recommend this movie for sure, especially if you want to watch Deadwood. It'll give you a taste of what it's actually like, and then you'll be like, wow, that's a good show, I should watch it all, and then you will, because it's a good show.
Yeah. You may know where everything goes, but you'll see the journey.
Yeah, exactly. So
yeah, no, I enjoyed it, and it makes me want to. It makes me so much more hyped for PC Red Dead. Which, by the way, I can't fucking wait for that shit, because like, if people can do like similar, because like, let's be honest, GTRP has some really good plot lines underline it. Like, yeah, there's a lot of really dumb characters, but like, for dumb characters, there's actually some pretty funny through lines through the story. People could do like a gritty, Deadwoody style universe in their servers. Man, I can't wait to be a part of that.
Yeah, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about this movie, Dev. Stop changing the subject.
Sorry, I just can't wait to be in a Western.
But I'm going to say one thing, one bit of speculation. I'm actually, based off of everything that's gone through, I would ultimately say that I actually am kind of a little bit disappointed. Only, not because of Deadwood, not at Deadwood, and not because, ultimately kind of a little bit because of Deadwood. Because I was thinking about watching the HBO show Chernobyl, which Chernobyl is also a TV show based off of real life events. So even though we know it can be turned into like a dramatic show, that's 100% true. Like they can show that they've done it with Deadwood, and they've done it with Game of Thrones and all that stuff. Like, they can make good dramatic shows, but the problem is because there's a story that they are following. I feel like it's gonna end with a not as good resolution, kind of like the way this one is. So now I'm kind of hesitant.
Because in real life, there isn't good resolution.
Exactly. So I'm kind of like, do I even want to get into Chernobyl to get on this long journey of an emotional twist and turns, all just to feel unsatisfied at the end? Like,
I mean, it's not the only HBO show you felt that recently for.
Exactly. Like, don't get me wrong, the endings are good. Like, I felt like the ending for the TV show for Deadwood was good, and I felt like the movie's ending was good. But at the same time, I'm just like, it's just the story, or it's just something about it was not quite there.
Well, it's just also, let's be honest, it's because it's real life. It's based off of real life. So, like, there's a certain thing that you can't change too much, or else you're just gonna be just parody of real life.
Yeah, then you're gonna become Quentin Tarantino.
Well, and then the other thing too is, like, you look at it like dramatizations. You look at Bohemian Rhapsody. The only reason why the end of that movie is so praised is because it literally is the concert.
Mm-hmm.
Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. I was about to say, you go back and you fact check the movie, and you're like,
oh God,
yeah. I remember during that review, I sat there and I was like, yeah, not knowing much about Queen, I really like this movie. And then I learned more about Freddie Mercury and Queen, and I was like, oh, I still like it, but oh.
Yeah, yeah. Because there are certain things that I knew a good amount about Queen, but I didn't obviously know everything I needed to know about Queen, because the stuff they changed are things that I didn't realize I didn't know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like the fact that two other band members had already had, their own individual albums when Freddie did his own, and then that whole entire through line doesn't even matter.
The fact that it also wasn't Live Aid, that was their first concert that they put on back together.
Nope.
Yeah. So
it's just more dramatic.
Yeah. All right. So now we're getting off topic. Dev, I'm going to hand you your 10 popcorn kernels for Deadwood the movie. What are you going to give it?
I'll give it an 8.
An 8?
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Nice. See, I was going to give this one a 7.5. Because I definitely enjoyed it. Does a good job. Good story. One thing I did definitely like that they amped up in this movie that they didn't have in, like, the TV show was they had a lot more, like, I won't say it's directly B-roll, but it kind of is. They had a lot more, like, wide shots of the city and, like, zooming shots over the forest. So it's, like, it's obvious that there's 10 years advancement in technology that shows that they can do more, like, establishing shots of the area. So it kind of feels like it's more, I don't know, like, you kind of get...
Alive?
Yes, almost. Like, you can definitely tell a little bit more that you're just in this city, essentially. Because in a TV show, you don't really get an establishing shot of the city and how it's grown and progressed, except you get to see the outside of the city once at the very beginning of the show. And then after that, it's just inside the city. So you don't get to know the depth and the scale of the city. But this lets you know the depth of what's happening, because it actually shows you how big the city has gotten. So.
All right.
All right.
That's fair.
So yeah, I'll give this a 7.5, and then we can.
So it's a nice round 8. It's a really curved 8.
See what? It's just a 0 with a belt around its waist, like them Western saloon girls. All right. We're gonna just get into El Camino now, our second movie of the day, which
holy shit.
Yeah. Which Breaking Bad movie, a Breaking Bad movie. So yeah, there's probably gonna be some spoilers for Breaking Bad in this non-spoiler discussion of the movie, just so everyone's warned.
Holy shit. Like, so Breaking Bad is arguably one of the best ended shows. Because what needs to be resolved is resolved besides really one thing. What happens to Jesse? That's seriously the only thing that isn't resolved at the end of that show.
Which, like, sorry, I've had something in my chest and it won't get out of me. I ultimately with the show, I everything the stories were mostly resolved, but I also felt fine with the resolution for Jesse that we had.
Yeah, no, that
Because
was fine.
yeah, he gets away and we're happy and he's happy and it's like finally he could finally have something good happen for him. And that's kind of all the resolution we need because it's not really his show, it's Walter White's show.
But what a hell of a prologue. Or is this epilogue? Epilogues
Epilogue.
again, right?
Yeah.
What a hell of an epilogue to Breaking Bad this is. This is that, very last chapter at the end of the book of a really good book that closes the very last through lines, still feels so much like the rest of the story. Like, this felt like just a really long episode of Breaking Bad that was a Jesse-centered episode.
Mm-hmm.
And it does it beautifully.
Like go ahead actually.
No, go ahead.
Okay. So with me, when I was watching this movie, if I were to directly compare it to Deadwood, one thing that I definitely liked more is their use of storytelling and the fact that what they did is not only did they give us more stuff, like they gave us Jesse's storyline. They gave us what happened to him while he was in that area. Because, sorry, 1 second here. Okay, so while he is captured and all that stuff, which because it's Walter White's TV show, we didn't really get to know some of the stuff that happened.
No, and that's also like a 5-year gap in between the halfway point in the last season, I think, right? Or is it a 2-3 year gap?
I think it's 3. 5 seems way too much to me.
Time jump. Breaking Bad timeline. On season 2. So, this takes place all in 2002 to 2003. Holy shit!
That was 1 year. I mean, I could kind of see that being.
And then 2004 is where it ends.
So it's a couple months difference between when he escapes and then when he captures, when he frees Jesse.
Yeah. Damn.
Yeah, I was about to say, there's no way it could be too long a period of time.
No, wait, sorry. Did I mess that up? Hold on. Oh, that's the Saul timeline. Sorry.
Better Call
the
Saul.
timeline was a little weird. So season 1, 2, 3, 4 take place from 2008 to July 2009. Season 5A is halfway through July to February of 2010.
Okay.
And then season 5B ends in September of 2010. So it's less than a year.
Okay.
So Jesse's been in there for about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.5 months in captivity.
That poor boy.
So, yeah.
Yeah, so... Sorry. So, yeah, we get to see a little bit of what happened to Jesse in his captivity. We get to see how he gets away from his captivity. And we get to see, a couple of other things. And, it's pretty interesting because I like the way that they told the story better. You remember, we watched Bird Box for this show, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a better way of Bird Box storytelling where they're telling 2 timelines kind of at the same time. The difference here is that they're not directly sequentially connected. It's not A1 to A2 to A3 kind of thing. It's it jumps timelines a little bit between this point and that point, and it does a good job of telling us what happened in the past to direct what he's doing now and then what his ultimate goal is, which just comparing it to Deadwood directly, all this Deadwood movie is a timeline of what's happening now, which is understandable. It's 10 years difference. They can't make people look younger, which because I don't know reasons, but they did a lot more flashing back to the TV show for minimal parts just to explain back like just to explain small things. Well, this
Yeah.
had entire motives of story points that were completely new to us in flashbacks.
Yeah, like they added a couple scenes with a couple characters that you didn't quite expect. And then they also had a lot of the plot, like one of those like is through like several flashbacks is with another character as well, and it all connects to what's gonna happen, but like they give us more to the story too. Um, and damn, is Aaron Paul such a good fucking actor?
Oh yeah.
Like throughout the entire show of Breaking Bad, he proved his acting wits. But like just this goddamn movie alone, you get to see his character through essentially all of his time. You see him at different points through some of the flashbacks, and then where he is now.
You've seen how he's learned.
Yeah. And you see a character that has gone through so much change. And, you know, where it ends perfectly, in my opinion.
Dude,
where...
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I honestly, where it ended, I thought it ended perfectly fine. But at the same time, my ultimate thought was, what if that's how it's going to end, what was the point of this movie?
To get him there.
Sure. Like, the point of this movie is essentially to tell us what was going to happen to him once he got there. Like, it definitely tells us what his plan was and what he's going to do when he gets there. But still, like, the way they ended it, to me, felt exactly the same as the way they ended it in the TV show.
I mean, yes, but I'll argue no, because in my opinion, we now know. You know what I mean? Because it was still kind of up in the air, and they proved that because, like, at the end of the show, well, we've avoided spoilers really well, I gotta say. There's cops that show up at the end of the show, and you don't quite know how Jesse's gonna deal with that. Because he has to kind of go in a certain direction. And that direction kind of is near cops.
Yeah.
So there was still some questions. This answers those questions, gives us some good story beats for him, for a Jesse-centric episode. This is how it should be done. And they did that before in other episodes of the series. But it shows how good at what he does he really is, how smart and intelligent of a character he actually is, despite the fact that he never went to college, he never did anything after high school, except start to cook meth.
I mean, originally it was just a mess, but
yeah, he had chili pepper.
Yeah, what was his name originally? L whatever.
Pepper or some shit like that.
Yeah.
It was a really dumb white boy name for his stuff. It was very 2008. But like, you know, it's still like it. In my opinion, this was the epilogue. This is how you like. A good way of putting it is like the book was kind of maybe still left open on the table, right? And you just hadn't gone back to finish the book yet. You know, because there's certain books that like you never finish, right? You read through most of it. I think there's a little bit left, but you just haven't got around to it. This was you going back and finally finishing the story. Or like games where it's just like, this was, weirdly enough, compared to Red Dead 2, this was the John moments at the end of Red Dead 2.
Okay. I think I see that.
In the sense of, it's a different character than the main protagonist of the story.
Okay.
But it wraps up the rest of the story.
Okay. So about to say, I never played Red Dead 1 or 2, so...
Red Dead 1 is a completely different... In my opinion, it's separate from this. For the most part. weirdly enough, weird way to tie this back together, but it works, is that because like Arthur is your main protagonist through Red Dead Redemption 2.
Mm-hmm.
Until a certain point, there's a time skip, and then John's the protagonist for the tail end, the epilogue missions
Okay.
that happen. This is kind of that. Because it feels like it's a natural sort of handoff to a character who would make sense to tell the perspective of the story from. I mean, John makes sense because he also was the main character of Red Dead 1, but, you know, it's slightly different things. This is essentially just closing the book, is what it is. It's tying up what few loose ends there are, because there were only a few, and it really was just what really happens to Jesse was the big one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple others. There's a couple others like what happened to Saul, but if you watch Better Call Saul, you kind of figure that out. So
yeah, like you know he has a backup plan.
Yeah. So it's just I feel it's beautifully shot as the show was. It feels like it naturally was a continuation from the show. So which I feel was the most important thing because it felt like an episode of Breaking Bad.
One thing that I was kind of at first, like, I liked it a lot at first, where they did a lot of what we call match cuts, where the image in the frame looks exactly the same when it's cutting back and forth from one moment to the next. So initially, when we're getting to get to see Jesse as he's trying to, like, revamp himself, essentially, it's a lot more match cuts for his, like, flashbacks. But then later on in the films, they're a lot more of just, like, randomly appearing flashbacks, which made me appreciate them less, in all honesty. So, like, at first I thought it was like, ooh, this is good storytelling the way they're doing this. But then later on in the movie, I was like, now they're just kind of throwing them in there because they need to explain a little bit, so...
Well, I feel like those ones towards the end were there just to kind of be like, to show that he, you know... The two at the end are with two characters who have impacted his life probably the most.
Yeah.
So like that's him in his brain finding closure. You know what I mean? Because those are the two people that he would need to like mentally be with to find closure through what he's been through. So him having that happen for me makes sense. And I had just recently watched Breaking Bad, like
Yeah.
a couple months ago, because my dad's girlfriend was watching through it for the first time. So I was like, "Oh, you know, I'll tag along for most of this journey. You know, I didn't watch every single episode, but I've seen every single episode, and like, it was really cool to see someone experience it for the first time and to see, you know, like I knew that this was coming, so I was like, this is perfect. This is my excuse to essentially rewatch the entire show.
Yeah.
And like it felt so in universe, and like seeing some of the characters we hadn't seen for a while and everything, it felt like a natural send off. Like it was the final goodbye from Finn's.
Yeah. I would definitely say that this movie, if we're trying to stay tonally connected, this movie has more of a matching tone to the TV show than I would say the Deadwood movie had to the Deadwood TV show. Though they're both very similar, I'd say this one just captures it a little bit better.
Yeah, and you could tell Vince and Aaron put a ton of heart into this, and they do such a good job of just really making sure that, like, one, you know this is the end, but that you also know that there's so much heart put into this end. That it may be goodbye to these characters for good, but like it's still good to remember what this story did. Because, like, let's be honest, weird fact, but Breaking Bad kind of did put a light on the fact of, like, one, teachers not being paid fairly for their work. That was a huge thing that actually kind of was sparked from the show, because this fucking high school chemistry teacher had to start cooking meth to pay for his medical expenses.
It's actually kind of funny. I find it kind of pretty funny now because this is a time, like in this direct moment in time, where people are discussing the ethics of TV shows and movies and what they're trying to portray, especially because Joker came out and people are like, what was the point of trying to get us to sympathize with this mass murderer? Like, a lot of people had that impression of like, they don't want to feel bad for this man who kills people for fun, essentially. Yeah. So,
but also I have other pre things with him because I've.
Yes, I get that. I'm not trying to call you out or anything, Dev.
No, I know.
But so this comes out also, and I'm thinking like, for us it's well timed because there's also been discussion of Breaking Bad. Like, why when Breaking Bad was airing was this not a discussion? Because it's it's kind of talking about the downsides of society and why like a teacher turns into becoming a drug dealer, but at the same time it's also kind of like
a drug kingpin.
Yeah, it's kind of glorifying what could happen theoretically if you like.
Well, see, that's one thing I've always enjoyed about how Vince portrayed things. He didn't glorify it.
Mm-hmm.
He showed how fucked up it could get.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even though they were on the top of the food chain at a certain point,
mm-hmm.
it still was fucked. Also, yeah, fuck cancer. But like they showed throughout that show that even when you're at the top, then there's more people trying to eat at you.
Mm-hmm.
And that like they showed the fact that like in a lot of ways power can corrupt.
Yeah.
They truly showed that like once you have that taste of like being in control, like not necessarily like being in control. It's a weird way of putting it, but like that there are certain people who shouldn't be able to like take control of such a horrible industry.
Mm-hmm.
Walt was one of those people. And so it's just I don't know, it's a very complicated topic but it's good that it's being talked about. And the same could be said involved with the Joker related stuff. But for me personally, the Joker also doesn't really sit on a through line long enough to make you really ponder it.
Mm-hmm.
While Breaking Bad had seasons of pondering on things and then being able to kind of move past that and start the next ponder that you would have. So though similar, I feel Breaking Bad tells a more coherent story and El Camino is the great epilogue for it. For a story that has always told it how it is,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion. So
all I know is I need to rewatch Breaking Bad now.
Hey, you should never not rewatch Breaking Bad.
It's just I have to find the right time and place.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else we want to talk about before we hop into spoilers or for this movie?
Talked about cast, cinematography, plot. Plot was good.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we touched on it too much, but like the plot, it was very coherent. Like the story was written very like we're gonna start here, we're gonna end here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's gonna happen.
Yeah, like.
Will we actually end here? Who knows? Like they threw some twists in there that like kind of make you go, "Whoa!" But we got there.
Yeah. As for how the story's written, I definitely liked how it was written. It definitely told the story very well. But my complaint, honestly, is just that there wasn't much of a story to tell, in my opinion. Like, there was maybe key moments, but other than those, like, it only showed us the. It only showed us the key moments, and then after those key moments, like, it had to show us flashbacks. And so I could maybe partially consider that a crux, but based on how they told, like, how it was written out and how they transitioned between the timelines, I can't really say it's a complaint.
Well, also, all of the flashbacks had point to them.
Yeah, they all had meaning, for sure.
Yeah. And like they were stuff the flashbacks were stuff we didn't see in the show. Is the other thing I feel is important. Because like they're seeing as far as I remember, I don't remember any of these scenes happening. I remember similar moments,
Yeah.
but never those exact moments happening.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like they added more to, like, one, with some of those flashbacks, the character dynamics we had, and then two, added to just the evolution of Jesse Pinkman to where he was in El Camino.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Which I kind of just want to get into spoilers myself because there's two, maybe three things specifically I want to talk to you about.
okay. Well, I'm giving you 10 popcorns then.
All right, thank you, Dev. I like my popcorn kernels. And using those popcorn kernels, I'm gonna give this movie, we'll say an 8. I'd say it's a little bit better than the Deadwood movie, so I'll say an 8.
I'm going to give it a 9, so.
All right, so a nice 8.5 for this one.
Yep.
All right.
An averaged 8.5.
I still wonder what's in the box too sometimes. Is it Jack? Is it, I don't know, some other bad movie reference?
It's his wife's head.
Oh, duh.
It's his wife's head.
What's in the
What's
box?
What's in the box?
7.
What's in the box?
One of these days we'll...
Get ready to spoil it!
Sorry, I forgot I had the button for a second, so I should hit that.
Oh, it's okay.
What's in the box?
Maybe one of these days we'll review that movie.
Oh, you know I'm gonna get a fucking soundbite from that.
What's in the box?
What's in the box?
You
What's in the box? Ah!
World Champ-
Man. So, like, I'm gonna dive into a deep spoiler that I didn't expect. One, I didn't expect Todd.
Todd.
That is it.
Yes. The guy
What?
who was like the one good guy who was also like the most manipulative.
One of the most fucked up
Yeah.
in that entire group. Like, all of them in that fucking neo-Nazi clan that Todd was part of that owned Jesse for a little bit were royally fucked up.
Mm-hmm.
But Todd was such a goddamn, like, flip of the coin what was going to happen. Because if you remember in Breaking Bad, he fucking shoots a kid.
Mm-hmm. Like, Todd is definitely a sociopath. And you
Yes.
And you definitely get to see it more in this because you can see just in the situations that happened with Jesse and where he's taken, like the fact that he's like, yeah, man, you did a good job helping me bury my dead housekeeper. Let's go get a pizza and some beer, and then let's take you
Give
back
me
to
the
your
gun.
cell. Yeah.
Give me back the gun.
Just like he seems in this movie, it's so strange because he seems like he's trying to be a nice guy, like he's trying to make the best for Jesse, but based off of what he's doing in context, like just in context, in comparison to what he's actually doing to Jesse, it's like, oh god,
Fuck.
yeah, this is a fucked up person.
Yeah. I will say it still was like, damn, were his moments just still creepy and powerful. And also, I did enjoy the opening with Mike, seeing Mike again.
Mm-hmm.
Damn, that was one of those moments like, oh yeah, that was their thing. They always, like, Mike was such a good mentor over Walt for Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
At least in criminal mindsets, like, Mike made more sense.
Yeah, so I did like that was the first thing we got to see was Jesse and Mike talking about right before he's supposed to leave for his pickup.
Yeah.
And just like, what are you going to do with your new life, kid? And just like, you'll never be free from what you've done, kind of thing. But it's like, that's a really deep but really nice thing because you see Mike, who is gone through and then left. He was gone. Oh, my computer froze for a second.
Uh-oh.
Can you still hear me?
How am I the one who's up?
I don't know. I don't know.
What is going on?
Give me 1 second.
Hello?
Huh.
Hello?
That was weird.
I still can't hear you.
You can't hear me at all?
No, I know you're talking because I can hear it on the stream, but I can't hear you.
What?
This is a weird mute and unmute.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
I don't hear you. Checks. I don't know.
Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you at all. I can't. I'm hearing it delayed through this.
Should I disconnect and then reconnect?
Yes, disconnect and restart.
All right.
Let's try that.
Troubleshooting. We need a troubleshooting screen for all of our streams. Ready?
Hello?
Hello.
I hear you!
Okay.
That was the weirdest glitch I've ever seen!
I know. Where my computer froze.
What the fuck?
I think I have a virus. I'm just kidding.
I've never seen it because I looked over the stream to see what you were doing and listened to what you were going to restart. And then also I see that you're still frozen. And I'm moving. I'm like, what? What?
Which was weird because there was still audio, like, only on my side. Everything was still fine except for the video. That was weird.
Yeah, I mean, audio for you was fine due to the fact that, like, stream you have stream audio set to that, but Discord
still
was not getting your audio. Your video was completely frozen, and I'm over here just kind of talking to the void. All right, back to what we were doing. And then getting to see Skinny Pete and Badger again was nice.
Skinny Pete and Badger, were they the... Oh, yeah, they were the ones in the house.
Yeah!
Yes. Like, that's actually one of the things I want to talk to you about, because when we first get to hear about it on the news, like the reaction that's happening, where people are like, yeah, Jesse Pinkman, the man who's one of the two men who created the largest methamphetamine smuggling thing in the U.S., is out large after being held hostage, and we don't know where he is. And then, like, as he's starting to leave, you just see this never-ending, like, caravan of police. Yeah, like, how is that man, Slim, supposed to talk his way out of that shit? Like,
well, fun fact, there's a trailer that is that scene.
Really?
Yeah, it's him, essentially what it is, it's Skinny Pete, talking to the authorities without his beanie, which, seeing the trailer originally, I'm like, well, that's Skinny Pete. I guess they took his hat away. Now we know why.
Yeah.
Which, a weird explanation, but you know what? It makes sense, because,
that's
you know,
actually
he's gotta
really
help
cool.
his...
If that was a trailer, that's really cool.
Yeah, that was in the trailer, and it's him talking to a room full of feds and being like, I haven't seen Jesse, man. And even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. What he's been through, he needs to go into the wind. You know, very Skinny Pete. Like telling the federal officers, go fuck yourself.
The man's been through hell and back, and you're going to put him in jail again?
I think that's actually a line.
Really?
Yes, in the trailer. You should watch the trailer. It's actually, like, now knowing what I've seen, it has, like, it was a trailer that I thought was a pre-roll to the movie, you know what I mean? But really, it takes place kind of in the middle of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Which is very Breaking Bad.
That's
like,
pretty cool.
So... yeah, like it worked really well, and like seeing like certain characters, like we saw old Joe, who was the trailer park guy, which was one of those things. I'm like, oh, he's gonna call the trailer like the wrecking area, the demolition yard. Cool. I wonder who's there. Holy shit, they got the guy who played him back.
Yeah, and
Holy shit, they're gonna get everyone.
And one of my favorite things is that it got meta there for a moment when he's checking for a low jack in the car, and it's like, one of my favorite parts was that, science bitch part. Yeah, that was hilarious. And then
Yeah, magnets, bitch.
yeah, magnets, bitch.
Still can't believe that worked. Which is one of the best moments in Breaking Bad. Magnets, bitch! Oh, it's such a good moment.
Yeah, and they had to get meta about it because everybody loved that moment.
Yeah. Understandably so, because it was such a good fucking moment. And see, like, they actually got, the two people who played Mr. and Mrs. Pinkman back as well.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I was, like, you know what? I'm genuinely impressed that, like, there were no recasts.
They probably had to, they probably had a different story that they were going to tell just slightly, but they had to recast people. Or they're like, we're just going to take that character out for a little bit and not talk about them.
Yeah, so. I mean, no one who didn't show up didn't feel necessarily needed. I did like the new character who was added, Neil and Casey. They felt the two assholes.
Ah, yes.
I felt they worked really well. They felt very Breaking Bad as, like, two characters who would have shown up in just, like, a couple episodes, and their fates probably would have been the same. Mm-hmm. Which was very Breaking Bad. And I loved the moment of the Western moment.
Oh, I'm trying to think of the exact Western moment. The gun. Yeah. That to me, I was like, there was no surprises, but I was like, this is Jesse being smart. I like it. He's playing his cards.
That was him being trained by Mike. That was how he was trained to do shit. Mm-hmm. Was to essentially be like, use every advantage you have and don't show all your cards. Yeah. And the entire time, he has his hand in his pocket during this thing, which looks as a way to just say that you're being even, right? Because the other guy has his hand behind his back.
Yeah.
And it looks like they're obviously going to do an old school draw. But in reality, Jesse has a snub-nosed revolver.
Already aimed on him.
And instead of drawing, he just shoots fucking 3 of the bullets into him. And then starts to shoot the other 3 into the other guy, misses, pulls out the fucking Mauser. A fucking Mauser.
I was sitting there myself just thinking, wow, look at that, feels supremely real. It's one guy who's just nervous as hell, and then it's another guy who's literally just high off his mind, and they can't shoot each other worth shit.
Yeah. But the thing is, also it's a Mauser. That's a gun from fucking German World War II pistol. Which raises some questions about the Pinkman family line. Yeah. Yeah. When he said that, I'm like, your grandfather had a Mauser pistol, eh?
Wasn't that like an officer's pistol where they just walk up and execute somebody? Just
in Hollywood, yes, and in real life, yes. It was the pistol. It was the German military pistol. It was a Mauser. But missed all those shots, and then he gets the actual gun that the other guy had, and just quick clips him. The other guy, puts him down, and just lets the other 3 losers go. He learns their names, which was a very Walt move.
Yes, intimidation.
Yes, that was 100% like the season finale where he Walter tricks the people that he used to work with into paying for his daughter's college stuff by having Skinny Pete and Badger outside with laser pointers. And I have trained snipers. They'll be watching you at all points. If you ever decide to stop making these payments, they will kill you.
I remember that.
And then he drives down the road, stops. Skinny Pete and fucking Badger get in the car.
Well, I have one question because I can't remember.
Yes.
When Walt was away in Alaska.
Well, Walt was in Maine.
Maine, okay. When Walt was away, Do we know what his license plate number was? Was it the exact same that Jesse had when he was in Alaska, or?
Not off the top of my head,
Yeah,
I'll be honest.
I was like, because part of me feels like they focused on his license plate for a reason, other than it saying that he's in Alaska now and he's driving away, which made me
that
wonder.
may have been it.
Yeah, that may have been it, but part of me wonders, like, could they have hidden a little Easter egg with Walt and his hideaway stuff?
Watch an Easter egg video. I'd suggest New Rockstars. They probably have already done a Easter egg video on it, and I prefer them for my Easter egg videos.
Huh?
Shout out to them. But like, maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I still feel like that scene before that where they have which you find out for real. This is the big spoiler. You find out Walt is dead.
Yes.
Which wasn't necessarily needed, but it does give the closure the entire story has.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was one of those nails that gets put into the thing, and you're like, oh, so this really is the end of this story.
Yeah. Like, ultimately, I kind of felt like Walt had to be dead.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they kept him alive and he's like, Walter White is in for questioning after severe medical treatment, and it's like, God, why aren't we learning about that story then? Like, I would rather learn about the drama of Walter White as he's going through the court system and how he's trying to manipulate people there than say Jesse run away. So good thing he was actually dead.
No, I can agree with that. It was good that he was actually dead because one, it creates closure, and two, means that people aren't going to focus on him.
Yes.
On the mystery of it, because like if he was like, even if they left it as a question mark, people would be like, "Is he though? Is he?" Because they could have easily been like killing 8 and leaving 1 serious in severe condition. They could have said that, which would have left people like, "Oh, maybe he's still alive."
Yeah, which one? Which one's the one in serious condition?
So closing that door for good is what was needed. And then, but that flashback I didn't expect. I had zero, thought process being like, oh my God, I wasn't ready for a flashback between these two. But it really showed their dynamic really well, which was that Walt really never listened to Jesse.
Mm-hmm.
He always tried to be a dad to Jesse, while Mike was a mentor.
Mm-hmm. Like, that was one thing that I did like, though, was, like, Walt actually sat there and was like, you can do this. You can kind of do whatever you set your mind to. Because you're smart, and you're this, and you're that. And it was like, that's not what he actually said. But it was like, that was definitely like a caring father moment, for sure.
And then Jesse says what he wants to do. And Walt's like,
let's do business instead.
He'd be great in business.
Yeah.
Sports medical?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I could see it, maybe.
No, I can see it. Well, he can do it. No, he's got to go, but he is actually probably going to go into wood carving and wood shop kind of style jobs, because that's what he was wanting to do.
I've been trying to look up, like, Breaking Bad universe lore. Like, does Mr. Driscoll from Alaska become anything important?
In other shows.
Yeah, like, in the future, in like and I don't know. Well, there'll be some Breaking Bad universe show in the future where it's like somebody in Washington doing some shit, and it'll be like, Mr. Driscoll is talking about this stuff, and it's like, ooh, is he
Driscoll wood furnishing?
Yeah.
Will be just something you see in the background, which people who read it will go,
Yeah, exactly.
See, don't even show us what actually is going on with Mr. Driscoll. Mm-hmm. Just show that sign, and people will be like,
he's good.
Jesse Pinkman, yo!
Yeah.
And I also liked seeing Jane one last time.
Mm-hmm. Just for that one more, like, subtle moment of tearing your heartstrings out.
Yes, but also seeing that Jesse can just... It was Jesse moving forward with all the weight. It was him, like, the last memory flashback we get of him with Jane, played by Kristen Ritter, who was Jessica Jones. Very similar characters, actually. Fun fact. If you look at it, you understand why she was cast as Jessica Jones when you watch Breaking Bad. It felt as though that was the one character that he would need to kind of find closure with, because what in the show when that happens, he's destroyed, and it's kind of what starts his like fall.
Yeah.
Almost. So him being able to essentially be able to kind of get back to life and be, human in some way again was really important. So
If you want to think about it literally, he was almost reborn in the back of that truck.
yeah, no, he was legitimately.
He was birthed out of a tiny chamber and walked out a new man into a new world. So
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. This is kind of what happened.
okay.
Yeah, like I'll say it was definitely like it wasn't the needed, but it definitely added. It was Toy Story 4. It was the epilogue. It was the finale of the story. And it earned its right to be needed.
Yeah. Right.
Which is what we wanted. And so and also I've got to say it was really cool that the fact that they got where is he? Robert Foster to play Ed again, the guy who hides people. One, condolences to his family, because he literally passed away the day after El Camino was released. And he's famous for being in films like Jackie Brown, The Descendants, films like that. He's a veteran of the acting industry. Like,
I thought it was Lou who was the one who did the.
No, it was Ed. Because Ed shows up in one episode of Breaking Bad, the very last episode.
Okay.
And is the one that no, he shows up in the second to last episode, I think. Where it's the episode that like Walt goes to Maine, and then there's that scene where he talks to Ed like down the year later, and is like, "Why do you still keep coming out here?" He's like, "Well, one, you keep paying, and two, you need chemo, and I can play cards with you for a little bit." So him coming back for the role was really cool, and one, that's why I'm really impressed with the fact that they kept such a strong like continuity to the show.
Yeah.
Like seeing him and seeing old Joe, seeing Todd and Lou, who I believe was the uncle who was having having Jesse run back and forth on the chain.
Yeah.
Was just like it really reminded you that this is a universe. Like, this is all a very connected universe. Which is kind of cool. And just I don't know why I didn't expect it all to be like that, but it does such a great job of it that it's just like, thank you for that, is the best way to put it. So, like, one, just thank you to the entire cast. Thank you to Vince and Aaron for finally, like, being able to pull it off. Because, like, Breaking Bad is such a great show that it deserves a great epilogue, and they did that. So, thank you.
So, anything else before we get into news and wrap up?
Nope, that's all I got.
All right. So, it's news time. So, news this week. Kind of some interesting things that I wanted to talk about. The first one being just a continuation off of other stories, and I have to find it again. But Scorsese has doubled down on his remarks about Marvel movies.
Ah, God damn it.
Let's see, Marvel remarks. I have to find them again. Sorry, it doesn't pop up when I wanted it to. Never mind, I won't be able to find it because my internet's being weird right now. So basically, if I remember right, he just basically doubled down saying that Marvel movies are exciting and entertaining at times, yes, but they're still not the emotional conveyance of a person-to-person story. Like, you can't really connect on the same level as an individual person as you can as a person to a superhero, essentially. And he just thinks that the superhero genre is changing the overall tone of movies, and he doesn't like it. Like, he says there's a difference between a Marvel movie. Like I was saying, there's a difference between a film and a movie. And he's saying there are more movies than there are films.
Okay, so my biggest problem with that argument, no offense, is that, like, one, like, they're a different type of film, yes. And they are made more, yes, for a mass audience, but I mean, acting like because they're like that makes them bad, I think is inherently just naive and ignorant of what these stories can actually do. Because if you start, like, let's be honest, their source material is very important. Comic book source material is so important because the amount of times that, like, people are like, oh, don't get, politics in my comics. There's an entire famous, one of the most popular groups of comic book characters.
I was about to say X-Men is all politics.
It is.
Yeah.
It's 100%. And so the movies can do the same from time to time. And do that very well, in my opinion. If one, like, directed right and, given creative, like, freedom to do so. And the fact that people say that you can't relate to a superhero, I think, is inherently, one, do you know Spider-Man? Because, like, one of the greatest stories ever told is Spider-Man related. About, I know it's not technically Marvel, but it's still under the Marvel brand in a lot of ways, is Into the Spider-Verse, which tells the story of that anyone can be a hero. Captain America's story is about the fact that, like, you have people you can trust, you have people who you can be there, who will be there for you through those moments, but also maybe you can't trust, like, don't blindly believe the government. Like, saying that a Marvel movie can't have context to chew on is just, in my opinion, inherently wrong.
I can appreciate that. Like, I just wanted to bring it up, but yeah, my opinion of it is not necessarily that it's not that they. My argument is less that he's not saying that there's any context, and I can't really verify exactly what he said because my internet's being all fucky. But, like, the way I kind of interpret it is, sure, there is excitement and
well, even then, go ahead. Sorry.
Thank you. I was about to say, sure, there might be excitement and there's ups and downs and, like, emotions and your connection and what's going on with the movie, but there's at some point there's a block off of what you can connect to. Like, I'm sure Martin Scorsese, as a famous movie maker and a relatively older male, I'm sure that he doesn't find much of a connection with any of the Marvel heroes, maybe except for, like, Tony Stark when he's trying to take care of his daughter. Because that's just a real emotion that he understands in comparison, that and one that he can relate to more directly.
One, I doubt he's seen Endgame.
True, but that's just something I'm bringing up. Like, it's just an experience that he has more like, it's just the Marvel movies, for instance, are like, you can stand up for what's right as long as you have a really powerful shield.
See, that's not how
yeah.
I see them and how I've ever seen them because of certain things involved in comics. Like, one, Captain America's story, Civil War is about, like, the speech Sharon Carter gives in that is originally a Captain America speech.
Mm-hmm.
And it's him, he gives that speech to Mariah Hill, and it's about the fact that, like, yeah, I'm the tree, I'm not going to move. But it's also a way of also being very human, and anyone could be like that, is to stand for the things you believe in.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need a shield or, superpowers to do that. To say just like that there's a moment of disconnect where you, just because you don't have the powers means you can't be invested, I think misses what they're going for.
Possibly, yes. But, like, he's not really explaining into exact details his exact thought process, other than saying that it's like, so, yeah. So, like, for what I can be saying in his defense, or what you could be saying, are just assumptions that we're making at the moment.
True. Which also, I mean, it doesn't help that he's only probably seen a couple of them.
Yeah.
Which more than likely was phase 1. Which, no offense, if phase 1 and phase 2 had about a 50% batting average. Because phase 1 had Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America First Avenger, and Avengers 1. All right? 3 of those are towards the top. Captain America, Iron Man, and Avengers, right? 3 of those, Iron Man 2 has a lot of cool moments, but overall it's like, it has moments where you're just like, do we really need to deal that way with it? Incredible Hulk is Incredible Hulk. And Thor 1 is superhero Shakespeare. For phase 2, we talked about, like, when we went over the story. But there's definitely progression. Except for Thor Dark World. There's progression. And then we get to phase 3, which is just a lot of good stories and very human stories where we see and some of them are kind of almost retellings of older stories, but they're done better. Like a good example would be Doctor Strange, which is very similar to the Tony Stark story. But in my opinion, almost done better due to the fact that, like, it showed Marvel's experience to be able to change some of the same key figures, like being a rich, famous in their field, and having this thing almost change that perception entirely, and how these characters react to that were very different, but they had very similar stories because they end up finding help in a way and end up becoming who they are, two of the figureheads of the Marvel Universe. To say that, like, again, I doubt he's seen anything past phase 1 because they've definitely, especially phase 3, has definitely told more grounded human stories. Because, like, Civil War tells a story of 2 people who...
I don't think you need to get into specifics of each movie at this point.
Fair. It's just more like there's a lot of very human stories that you can relate to, even when the big superhero antics happen. And, like, the one not to get into too much detail, but, like, the fights in Civil War, you could still be invested in because you understand the character, like the characters and why they are where they are and what's happening. Well, the thing is, he's also just talking about Marvel movies. We don't know his opinion on DC.
Yeah. Like, he's...
And that's also DC, the Vertigo? Vertigo. Yeah, that's DC Vertigo.
Plus, I would also say, in my direct instance, I connect more with the heroes, quote-unquote, the anti-hero, V in more than I would like some of the other superheroes, only because he's a more human character. The things he goes through are like not necessarily human as in like, oh, the emotions that he's feeling feel human, but the fact that what he goes through as a person feel more relatable. Like he's shot a couple of times and he dies from it compared to being shot a couple of times and then
Yes, but he's
brushing
also
off the
burnt to a
bullets.
fucking crisp
Mhm.
and lives through it,
Also
which is
true.
very inhuman.
Also
So
true.
I not to be that guy, but I am going to counter you with your own movie.
Yes, but I'm saying it's not like it's not the point of the movie is him surviving the fire. That was just a brief flashback of the movie to explain why he is on his rant that he's on. Like,
I mean, fair, but also it does play a little bit into the plot because the main villain also is kind of part of that.
yes.
So it is important to the story.
It's also not like he's saying that the movie 300 is a garbage movie, being a dramatization of the Spartan Persian War. Like,
I would be inclined to more agree with him though because it's also a Snyder film, which is usually just a lot of fucking slow mo.
true, but I kind of liked 300 when I watched it.
Oh no,
I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
It's dumb film, fun. But like I'll say this, like let's be honest, I can't relate to characters in Goodfellas.
Mm-hmm.
I think Goodfellas is still one of my favorite films of all time. I can't exactly relate to them,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Like, I guess a way I would kind of compare it is, would you relate more with? It's a bad example, but I'm going to say Walter White versus Arthur Fleck, because it's just what I'm thinking of off the top of my head. Because like Walter White is more of a human person who makes these terrible, terrible decisions, but he's a person who goes through real person things. Arthur Fleck is a terrible, terrible person who goes through terrible motives, but it's not quite the same, you know? Like,
One, I can't compare. I'll be honest, I can't compare those two because one, I have very different opinions on those two things, and just how they're done. I guess for me, it's be like, here, I'll use a comparison that'll work for me. Is comparing a character from Gangs of New York to a character from Marvel. Gangs from New York is also one of my favorite films. I'll be honest, I like a lot of Martin Scorsese films. Goodfellas, Gangs in New York, Shutter Island, like are three films that I love. But for me, I can't really relate to all those films. Shutter Island maybe a little bit more out of all of them. But like I can relate to the Marvel characters more because like one, they're written in a way that I can
I guess it's more just like the vehicle and how they're told. Like,
yeah, it really is.
I think it's necessarily I'm not going to say it necessarily either less that it's like a fondness or a nostalgic feeling, but like maybe because you grew up with comic books, you can see the underlying
Well, I grew up with
story.
Gangs of New York and Goodfellas.
Also true, but Martin Scorsese didn't grow up with comic books. So
True.
he probably didn't grow up with the comic book storylines and the morals of those in comparison. Like he probably doesn't, I don't know. There's probably not like a direct comparison that he can find because he didn't grow up feeling that way as a child reading those comic books.
That's fair. I mean, because like how I would compare it is like Captain America to Amsterdam Valen from Gangs of New York, which is Leo's character, Leonardo DiCaprio, are both kind of characters who kind of take the leads in their groups in a way. And I would relate more to Cap more because one, a lot of Scorsese's films are period pieces. I guess that also creates a bit of a disconnect because times were very different. And just people's moral understanding of things.
I'm trying to think of a good comparison that like I just thought of one that might work.
Okay.
but I'm trying to find. So I'm thinking. I mean, it might not work as well. Like my last argument to try and like get you to see this is like maybe he's trying to feel like the more direct human to human feelings. Like, for instance, say Captain Marvel was a movie all about empowering women to prove to be that they are strong and they are powerful and all that stuff. And they can do whatever they set their minds to. But would you say like movies like, I don't know, the main character Furiosa from, Mad Max Fury Road, or let's see, or like Lucy from the Lucy movie, or like I'm just coming up with really bad women girl power movies off the top of my head.
Mad Max in my opinion, Captain Marvel isn't a girl power movie. All right.
Okay.
People who, no offense, people who call it that didn't really watch the film. It's a Phase 2 Marvel film, is how I've defined it. Because it's better than some of the stuff they put out in Phase 1, but it's not better than a good portion of Phase 3. It's definitely more of a Phase 2 film. And in my opinion, that story is more about identity and finding, yourself, even if, like, you don't fully know who you are. Because that's her story is she's an amnesiac who starts to question. She's an amnesiac Captain America. That, like, you got to figure out who you are, kind of thing. And that you're greater than the sum of your parts, kind of thing. Which was very much a Captain America story. Which was very important to the Captain America storyline in that film, in the first one. So, like, again, I don't look at them as... Because I also, no offense, don't like the term girl power film, because it's just like...
True, but I think you're focusing on the wrong part of my argument here.
That's fair. It's the part that my brain decided to focus on, because that's the part that, like...
But now can we focus on the part of my argument that I wanted to talk about?
Well, I mean, I would say the Mad Max one. I didn't see Lucy because I heard it was sucked.
Or even like Katniss Everdeen in The Hunger Games.
I hate The Hunger Games. I think those are terrible films.
Okay.
We watched 2 of them and I was miserable, Steven.
True.
We went over this.
And we still have 2 more to go.
I don't know if we'll ever do those.
Hey, it's my show.
Fuck you. I don't want to do this. I don't know. I hated those 2 weeks because they're so poorly written. That's the thing. It's how they're written. Because I would say Furioso is written better, far better than Captain Marvel. But also Mad Max is a better film. While Captain Marvel is more kind of stuff to chew on before Endgame. And setting up like the last piece you need for Endgame. And like a little bit of setup for Phase 4, Phase 5 era stuff. My thing with that, though, is Marvel's also got to do it a different way due to the fact that they are a franchise that has all of these connected. So you've got to write things a little bit differently. So I can't truly compare the 2 of them because you're comparing an apple to a fucking banana. They're very different.
Okay.
And so, like, that's why when we do compare and contrast, it's usually with things that have very similar structures and stuff. And both Captain Marvel and Furiosa are very uniquely written characters from each other. That I don't know if there's really anyone you can really compare them to. Okay. Like, with Furiosa, or with Captain Marvel, maybe you compare it to Wonder Woman because they're kind of fish out of water stories. But at the same time, they're very different fish out of water stories.
Okay, what about if we compare Captain Marvel to Mulan?
I would probably prefer Captain Marvel to the fact that, no offense, Disney cartoons, like, fun fact about that one, Disney was kind of like Japan, all of Asia, or sorry, China, all of Asia, because there's hints of Korea and Japan and Mongolia and just a lot of all of Asia in that film. So there's a little underline of racism that just still hadn't gone away by then and still hasn't gone away. And maybe it's also due to the fact that like I'm far more adult. I still like Mulan, but also.
I was about to say the moral and themes of Mulan are coming to terms with yourself and gathering who you are and becoming your own person, empowering who that might be. So like some people.
The kid in me would say Mulan. The adult in me would say Captain Marvel. Okay. Sort of. Only due to the fact that like one. Make a Man Out of You is such a good song.
Like I only say Mulan specifically because I just looked up the best 16 feminist movies of all time, and Mulan was one of them. So, Wonder Woman's another one, which I can give it, sure. We've got Atomic Blonde. Mad Max Fury Road is one of them. Thelma and Louise. Kill Bill. The Wizard of Oz. You're just thinking, how are those feminist films? And why are they considered feminist?
Well,
I don't really want to get into
it's more the fact that, like, there's a lot of film, like, I don't want to say theory, but breakdown. And, women in film, those are very different fucking films. Trying to say that The Wizard of Oz compares to Mulan to
Mad Max.
Yeah, those are very different films from very different periods.
But the people are saying that those are all movies about a main female character who are empowering themselves and becoming the person that they're supposed to be. But Captain Marvel
wouldn't necessarily say that Mad Max is that. It's just she's a badass already.
Also true.
Like, yeah, she has some plot development, but like, she's kind of the protagonist of that film. I wouldn't necessarily say that, like, I mean, yes, she has plot progression in the sense that like she starts to stand for something, instead of running, but at the same time, like, it's a post-apocalyptic world. What else are you gonna do? It's cross the desert assault or turn back and try to race them back.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. I think we've had enough of that topic then. I've got one more thing that I'm willing to talk about, maybe two, and then we'll head into next week. So, next thing. Zoe Kravitz is confirmed to play Catwoman in The Batman. Did you know about that?
I don't know who that is off the top of my head.
Big Little Lies star Zoe Kravitz has been tapped to play the anti-hero of Catwoman. Let's see.
How do you spell her last name?
Kravitz.
Kravitz. Is Zoe just spelled Zoe?
Zoe. Maybe this.
Oh, okay.
I can't open anything right now.
Okay, I mean, she could do it.
So yeah, she is somebody who's been cast as Catwoman in the new Batman movie, being directed by Matt Reeves. I mean, I'm interested to see what she can do, because I know in Big Little Liars, she plays as a woman who helps hide the fact that one of her friends has committed murder. So, and it was self-defense, but still. Spoilers for Big Little Lies, anyone who wanted to watch that.
This was a show I never expected that we would talk about that show.
I watched it with my stepmother. She likes watching weird shows sometimes, so I watch them with her. Because, family. So, yeah. So she does a good job in that show. So I could kind of see how she could be, like, hiding things and being like an interesting person to kind of, maybe act as the anti-hero. And
Well, I mean, she was Lolita Lestrange in Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald, so she's not exactly tied down to a franchise right now.
true.
Given what happens in that.
Okay, so there was that. Okay. Oh, the last thing. This is one thing that I was interested about, and I'm a little confused on how it's supposed to work. AMC Entertainment will introduce an online video store in the United States coming up tomorrow, actually. The AMC's president and executive chief said that the AMC Theaters on Demand will feature about 2,000 films for sale or rent after their theatrical runs. Much like Amazon or iTunes, Disney, Warner Brothers, Universal, Sony, and Paramount have made deals with AMC for catalog and new release movies to be available through the new service with pricings to $3 to $6 for a rent and $9 to $10 to buy. So it's like, the way it looks like it's going to happen now is there is theatrical releases. There's AMC's pre-purchase rental period before the physical purchase stuff comes out. And then there's like the DVD release, I guess, is what they're going to...
So they're trying to capture the early digital market.
Essentially. You can rent it if it's no longer in theaters, but you can't buy it yet, essentially. I think, if I'm reading this right. It's been aggressively marketing and finding methods to engage its customers. Let's see. It's so far, as of yet, like even though it hasn't been released quite yet, has about 900,000 subscribers for its service. So.
I mean, it kind of makes sense that it would try to fill that void.
It's trying to take the spot of like the penny theaters. Like where if a movie is no longer in circulation in movie theaters, it'll go to a penny theater. And I kind of like going to those theaters. They're quiet. They're nice. They're not always well kept. But, it's nice to see a new movie in a not so busy theater. So I'm
Let's be honest, those theaters are kind of dying out, so someone's going to fill the void. And the void would be digital.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've got nothing else news-related wise this week except for our movies for next week. Unless you've got anything.
Nope.
All right. Movies for next week. So, this next week, I'm a little hesitant on. But, we have people who have requested us watch this movie. And they're in the audience, so they know right now that if we hate this next week, it is all their fault. Just like the last time
and also we have I don't want to say tradition, but almost an obligation to just bitch at Disney and their live action department.
Well, apparently the first one was good enough to warrant a sequel, so we'll see how it goes.
Still haven't even seen the first one.
Neither have I. So we'll see how that goes.
With Maleficent and Maleficent 2.
Yes. And I'm going to probably directly call out Chasing again next week if this is a movie that we end up not liking. Because, she asked us to review it, just like she asked us to review Dora. And last time that happened, we got mad at her for it. So, so yeah, be prepared. Be prepared. Yes. So Maleficent.
Be prepared.
Thank you.
I have things cut out of the film.
I mean, what are you supposed to cut out of a movie that's not even about Snow White?
It's not about Snow White. It's about Sleeping Beauty, motherfucker. Jesus.
All right. So, with that in mind, and with nothing else to say, I guess we're kind of done here this week, I guess. Yeah? We're done here? Nothing else good to say? No?
I got nothing else.
All right. I've got nothing else either. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Give us a follow on their YouTubes, and by a follow, I mean a like, a comment, and a subscribe, maybe. Join us on Discord, where we're building up our community, where we post things all the time, because Discord is cool. Follow us on Twitter, because we announce stuff on tweets, and words. They happen all the time. Twittering. Yeah.
And follow us there on Twitch so you can catch all of our shows at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Yep. Monday through Thursday. So, thanks for joining us, everybody. And we will see you guys next week, next Monday at 6 p.m. for Maleficent and Maleficent 2.
Yay, Disney!
Yeah.
Motherfuckers! You're back in my place!
Oh no,
Now you're gonna get fucked!
we're going to Disney.